Today we're going to talk about the difference between the operational and the strategic effects of warfare. And of course, if you're writing books and movies, how to properly use these types of things in your writing. So a beautiful example on the war front is the Korean War. So at the beginning of the Korean War, the North Koreans had a lot of tactical and technical superiority over the South Koreans. They were trained, they were better prepared, and their tanks were just superior, which was able to push the South Koreans all the way back to the Pusan perimeter. Now, the Pusan perimeter is a great defensive perimeter because there's rivers and there's mountains up in here. And it was so good that even when we pushed American troops up in here and we started this rigorous bombing campaign, we weren't able to break out. So we needed something else to give us a change in the way this war was being fought. So we wanted to go from a defensive warfare to maneuver warfare. So what we did was we landed on Incheon. Very risky. If you've ever been there, that's a terrible place to land, but somehow they pulled it off. Now the enemy troops, or the North Koreans, were forced to withdraw. And the reason why is because their supply lines were at risk of being cut off. And so what it did was it forced them to pull back away from these defensive structures and moved it back to the maneuver warfare that we love as Americans. And so the Americans and the South Koreans pushed them all the way up to the Yalu River. Here's where the second operational effect comes into play. You have China. China told us to stay away from the Yalu River. We ignored them. So they started pushing troops into the warfare, or into the war. And so what you're going to see here is this is a change in the nature of the war. So we go from fighting in static defensive positions, trying to find a way out, to maneuver warfare, which gives us a distinct advantage. Here, they're changing at the tactical level of warfare. By increasing the number of enemy troops, it made the US and South Koreans have to fight a lot harder for each ounce of ground that they took, or in this case, wound up losing. All the way up until we wound up, again, in key defensive positions and at a static warfare, which is where the war ended. Now, the difference between these operational type effects that changed the outcome of the war to a strategic effect, we need to look at 2018. When the United States put a THAAD in South Korea. What you're going to see is that you have the initial effect in North Korea and in Russia where they had that initial giant response. But you have secondary effects in countries like China, Japan, the Philippines, and in NATO that makes this really a global change in the nature of how we view defense. So keep that in mind.